Okay, let's build a driver the right way from the start to the finish. Welcome back to the McGolf shop. I've had a few videos posted on YouTube, and the intention was to give you a series of videos from the start to the finish of a set of clubs. However, due to some equipment difficulties and me being new at all this, it just didn't quite come out the way that I wanted. So we're going to try this one more time. Now, these videos you're going to find out are not just for the guy wanting to put a set of clubs together, but for the golfer that's looking for a little extra knowledge on the equipment and why things work for them and why some things don't. Alright, so what we've done is we've already gone through a fitting, and if you recall in some of the other videos, I was building a driver, a set of irons for both a son and a father from West Virginia. Well, he has another son that's in college. He came back to visit for the holidays, and we put him through a fitting, and now we're building him a driver. So and he's quite the good golfer too, about 2 handicap with a 120 plus mile per hour swing. So it's quite a bit going on here. So the very first thing is we've got all our equipment together. I've weighed them out, and I'll show you what I'm going to weigh them on. And the first thing we're going to do is find the spine of our shaft. We got to start somewhere, and this is where I like to start. So what I do is I take out my shaft holder for when I do my gripping on my vise, and I install my spine finding tool. Now, you stick it in from this side. You get yourself a Sharpie marker ready because you're going to need to use that when you make your line. And then you have your idler bearing to pull down on. So when you grab this and you pull down on it, do a little twisting and try and find, sometimes it wants to just snap right into place. There's one, there's two, there's three. So there's one, there's two, and that one wasn't very tight. So we're going to start with this one. I draw a line. You can't see that, and I'll take another video of it, and then I have it right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video, and then I'll show you from the other angle. Okay, we're back to this, showing you a different way. Now I pull down on it. You see, I don't know if you can see, but I already have my mark here. We're going to see if it comes back around. Well, there it is, right there. See how it wants to go that way? So we have one there. We'll have one there. So I've got 2 lines. If you notice, they're 180 degrees apart, and this is how I mark my line. Just use my thumb as a guide and lay it right on there. So we now have it. We have the spine found, the hard side of the spine. When I get it into the golf club, we'll talk about why that's important. Okay, we've moved on from finding the spine of the shaft to we're actually doing the flowing. Flowing is flat line oscillation. So as a golfer, what does this do for you? Well, what this does is this puts in a level of consistency into the club so that it acts the same time over and over and over and over again. And what you have in the argument in the golfing community is, well, if the golfer doesn't put the same swing on it, then what difference would it make? Well, true. However, if you don't make it consistent, then how can you ever get that same expectation? And this isn't the cure-all, end-all to putting a golf club together. It's just the very beginning building blocks to make something that is very consistent, something that you can use in order to keep hitting those fairways. And through the fitting, we find other parameters that we need in order to make you a long driving weapon, i.e. length, loft, all right, sometimes the lie, the flex profile, the weights of the shaft. All these are different things that are taken into account before the assembly of the shaft, all right, or the assembly of the club. So this is just the beginning of it. So what I've done is, you saw how we marked it, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip, and I don't know if you can see it, but what I do is I cut some fishing line. Hopefully you can see that. I'm spinning it around. And that's what helps me keep it attached to the head to the shaft. So I lay it on the back, get it so it's wedged in there, and then I get it put on, And then I align the line that we made at the 12 o'clock position. There's always going to be arguments, it's chicken or the egg stuff, of whether or not it needs to be going towards the target, away from the target. 12 o'clock seems to be the, I've always assumed that, the club bends down during the swing. Yeah, it flexes back and forth, but it truly bends down. And if I can keep making it bend in the same way every time you swing it, then that's that level of consistency. Now what I put on is a little laser here that I've got. Put it in my clamp. And this is what verifies what I did with the spine finder. Okay, see how it's rocking around just a little bit. We're going to turn it just ever so slightly. And there we go. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a bit of a line over here. There it is. And it just disappeared for you. Isn't that wonderful? And there it is, up and down. And that's what we're looking for, and that way we know that it's flowed. So how do I, when you hear of SST puring, it's kind of the same concept, except for they're using some pretty fancy machinery to get you to the right spot. Now, to ensure that I get back to that, I draw a line on both of these, so when I'm assembling it, I know that that's the right spot. Alright, so the only thing left now is to get to the right length. We're going to put it in our AccuMade ruler to make sure it's the right length. And we wanted a 45-inch club, not your traditional 45.5. And then we're going to cut it, and then we're going to glue it together. We'll just go really quick over into that one. Okay, and this one, what I like to do is we got to put some epoxy down. And since it's a single club, I really don't need to put a lot of epoxy on the cardboard. I've got one or two to make after this, so I'm putting just a few lines down. And basically a 1-inch line of both these bottles of epoxy is what you need. This is a 50-50, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's called a 50-50 epoxy. What that means is you need exact equal amounts of each one in order to get the right mixture combination together. Some are 25-50, some are some really oddball ones, but 50-50 is pretty much all we need. So we get it stirred in there for about 20 seconds. Alright, and then I put in shafting beads. And what do shafting beads do? Well, shafting beads are like teeny weeny little pieces of ball bearing or sandpaper grit. And what they do is I get them all stirred in here, and so they get covered up by the glue. What they do is they provide a way to get around the shaft and center that shaft into the hosel. Alright, so I got one more thing to do. I've got to drop that weight into this hosel because I needed to add just a little bit extra weight in order to make this club balance the way that I wanted it to. There we go. So it slid on down there very well. I'll put in there just to make sure. There we go. And then we're going to attach the ferrule. Now in another video I showed you what a ferrule was. This is our 335 ferrule with a chrome beauty ring. I like putting a little bit on the shaft, and here you go, club makers and golfers. You put a little glue on the shaft. That makes it, you ever had your ferrule creep up the shafts, particularly if you leave them in your trunk at night? Well, there you go. This will help stop that. Press it down. Hear that change in sound. Now we know that this has been installed to the proper length so that it seats and looks good. Alright, you don't need to put a whole lot of glue in there. Spin it around. Make sure we got it all nice and covered. We find our marks that we had before, our alignment marks. Tap it so we make sure that it's seated properly. And now we're wiping off the excess. is excess glue is really hard to remove, so you get rid of it now. Alright, there we go. Nice and cleaned off. I get a little bit of tape to secure it there, and then we will wait another at least 12 hours to allow it to cure, and then we will do some finishing and we'll be right back to it. So real quick, we did our quick alignment, we did our quick measuring, we did our frequency check, we made sure our shaft was in line with the head so that it flowed right, and we did just a real quick glue. And all this is going together to make a custom built driver for a young man in college. And so if you found it interesting, and I know it's just real quick, or if you have any questions, what do you think about doing all this for a driver? Is it something that you think would interest you? Ask me a question. If you ended up liking the video, go ahead and subscribe. And thank you for watching the McGolf channel.